Are we engaging at the church? And does it matter? Well, why not a church come up and say, oh yeah, if Festel's standing, vote for him? Leela.
I think perhaps one of the challenges that we have with our church leadership is that, first of all, you have to convince the shepherd of the sheep, of the value. And so basically, you have this challenge of the shepherd's perception, with them, if you can pass the gatekeeper, then you can get to talk to the sheep. But I don't know whether any of the ministers actually took a degree in communication, but you can set up a meeting the day before, and by the time that I made it to that meeting, they knew who my father was, who my mother, so I'd say hello to them and they'll ask me how my parents are. So that was kind of like just that screening process of, I know you, and you don't just come alone, you come as a village to represent. So I think that, whilst it's fantastic that we have a lot of church members or church leadership that is now proactive and helping the community actually understand some of the things that we need to be proactive in, there are still leaders who are working on it. And I think it's because we still need to they still need to be convinced, or there still needs to be discussions as to the value to not only to the church but also to the church family, and some may actually, and that's some of the dangers. So relying only on the church communities to be able to communicate with may present some challenge for as far as raising awareness. So I think that we also need to take advantage of things like like the student bodies that we have within campuses, because they do actually come, they like dancing and I don't know, doing island things like that, gathering and, and in that social setting, why don't we just tap in onto them as well? We'll be engaging once more a different demographic. They may have stopped going to church, and these are our new emerging leaders. So there are different avenues, but whilst we have a very high success with the church leaders, I think that we also need to look at our other leaders as well.
We could take them to Bring It On, eh?
Well, why not?
Oh, yeah, we have a question here.
It's kind of more of a comment, but also to enjoy the question. And the first comment I wanted to make was it's great that we've got a forum like this, albeit at the end of the voting period. What will be interesting is to come back here next year and see how much of a voice we have had in the Super City. But it's something that you guys have touched on already, which one of the things that I wanted to find out tonight was I'm at home, my voting papers are still at home. It's half filled because I wanted to touch on the process, the voting process. And it's half filled, and simply because, I know tomorrow is the last day to post it in. I don't know what's going to happen if I don't post it in tomorrow, how I'm going to get that paper in for my vote to count. So I wanted to throw to the panel, you've mentioned the church as a vehicle, as an avenue to, get to explain the whole voting process, but I just wanted to throw it out to the panel and see what your opinion is of the current voting system. Is it too long, and how do you explain it to people? I can read a booklet, I can tick a box, but visibly I don't see these candidates out there to help me with my vote.
Alfred?
Actually, Dale Osofsky, who's running the electoral office, and he said on an interview on radio just as we were coming in, he was just saying that actually voting is 5% up on what it was last year. We're at 27% voting at the moment, which is around about 258,000 people in the Auckland area who are eligible to vote. So they were 27%. He said we're 5% up on what we are there 3 years ago. And I suppose that's been because there have been a lot more candidates. It's the new super city. There's been more media sort of around us and exposure, so people are getting out there. But I think it's a really good point, because I think at the moment they are confusing. The voting forms are confusing for lots of people. And the other thing that I think is important is that what we're not doing enough is educating early. Priscilla was talking about the whole aspect of education. It's not just for Pacifica, it's actually the whole of Auckland. And I think we don't educate even earlier. So even our young people don't understand, how do you engage into civil society? How do you see the importance of it? So we don't have programs, and again, who knows, Dream whānau to vote whānau could be something that allows people to could allow people to sort of think about, we're giving you jobs, see, this is amazing. But just that whole thing around how do we educate people early? And also too, I think that this is only the first. I think this new Super City and the whole system will change, because we are going to have to make it more efficient, more effective, and how do we engage so that people are participating in that as well. Just a comment about the churches. I think what I'm mindful of, having been actively involved with Auckland District Health, but around the Healthy Village Action Zones in regards to our churches, we need to be careful that our churches will become fatigued, because one day it's Pacific Heartbeat, next day it's Loto Moi, next day it's Healthy Village Action Zone, next thing you know it's Ministry of Justice. And churches have become the focal point for a lot of agencies to come and filter through their programs and their services. And what we haven't allowed for is an opportunity for the ministers and the pastors to stop for a moment and to think, first of all, theologically, how do we understand these issues? Even when it comes to politics, what's the theology around politics? How do we support it? So it's not just, hey, this is a good idea because Pacifica people in our community. We also, I think, have to take a step back and think more meaningfully about what's our reasons behind that. Look, we did that in the Healthy Village Action Zones program. We sort of said, what's a theology of health? How do we see the importance of it? So when we do support it, it's not just because Paseo came with the Gambling Foundation and said, we should do this. So I think it's about making us more informed, educating early, and then hopefully reshaping the way that we vote so that it's more efficient, more effective for all of our communities.
Just on the mechanics though, we've been talking to the returning officer, we've talked to the electoral enrolment people about engaging with the Pacific community. So what's encouraging is both the returning officer and the electoral enrolment people came to the Ministry of Pacific Island Affairs and said, we need your help. And so we're experimenting this time with some new ways of communicating, because as you say, it can't just be the churches. It's about 700 people joined our Facebook page. Why do we do that? Because the biggest users of Facebook and social networking sites in New Zealand are Pacific people, believe it or not. We're not supposed to have access to internet apparently, but we find it somewhere. And we're on that bloody net. We're on that Facebook or Bebo or whatever twice a day, most of us, according to the statistics. So those challenges are there, and they're going to have to be met in the future. On the mixed way of voting, that's the problem, I think. You've got first past the post for just about everything, and then you've got STV, which is 1, 2, 3, 4 for your district health board. I think that needs to be rethought, because that's what confuses people, is the two different ways of voting. But that's something government's going to have to look at down the track, because I think that's one of those things that does put people off voting, and anything that puts people off voting means that they won't do it. And you can take your voting paper to the library on Saturday before midday if you haven't made your mind up already. And that stuff's all on the internet. You can find it. It's been translated into numerous Pacific languages, but sometimes you have to take the horse to the water. Sometimes you can't make it drink. I think the authorities are doing their best, but there's always room for improvement.